Revelation 2828. From the 27th and the 28th of July 1943. Size of the work of destruction. Natural disaster. People have no idea how God will express himself because a work of destruction will take place which has not yet been experienced in its magnitude. And therefore the predictions will not be believed and will also remain without effect, for people do not want to accept anything extraordinary and consider an intervention by God which destroys creations to be completely out of the question. But God expresses himself in a form which is unusual because the purpose of the works of destruction is to tear people out of everyday life and to put them into other living conditions which shall change their thinking and their way of life. And therefore God will demonstrate his might and his power to people through the forces of nature. He will reveal himself to people in the elemental outbreaks of these. He will deprive them of all strength and show them their helplessness so that they will turn to him for help, so that they will confess him in their hearts and call upon him for his assistance. It will be a process which will freeze people, for the raging of the forces of nature will be so powerful that they will believe the end of the world has come. And people will not know the extent of the natural disaster. They will only be able to survey their immediate surroundings and know nothing about the actual extent of the work of destruction because all contact with the environment will be interrupted. It will be terrible hours of utmost hardship and deepest despair, because no human being will be able to stand against the forces of nature, because everyone will have to endure what God has imposed on them. The divine voice will be audible to everyone, for it will sound with such strength that no one will be able to close his ear. It will cause fear and terror. And yet it is the voice of love which speaks to people. So powerfully only because the quiet voice is not heeded and because the human being must be called if he does not want to perish in the way of life he leads. Without God and without faith in a continuation of life after death. Although even this obvious expression of God will not be recognized by most people for what it is, a guiding and destiny determining God will be rejected by many more than ever, yet the immense natural event will stimulate people to think about it, and then the individual's will be decisive as to how far his thinking corresponds to the truth and how he allows the thoughts he now receives to take effect on him. He can attain the right realization if he does not close his mind to the bearers of truth who mentally try to instruct him, and if he listens to people who preach to him about God's love and the meaning and purpose of earthly life. God gives all people the opportunity to come to the right realization, and only the will for truth is necessary for him to derive the right benefit from the dreadful experience. But only a few will have this will. And they cannot be helped if this natural disaster also passes them by without an impression. God applies the last resort before the final divorce. He tries to change people's thinking once again. He makes them aware of the transience of earthly things and lets them get into situations where they should look for him and long for him in order to then be able to help them. And therefore he allows a work of destruction to take place which, however, at the same time signifies redemption for the spiritual substance bound in the solid form. Ignorant humanity only sees the overwhelming destruction, but the knowing human being knows about the necessity and blessing of such destructions for the spiritual development of the spiritual beings. He also knows about the danger in which the spiritual beings abound in solid form. He also knows the danger humanity is in that it does not recognize its creator, that it lives irresponsibly and does not fulfill its last purpose of earthly life. And he knows that God only lets his mighty voice be heard because he takes pity on humanity which does not recognize his rule and activity. He knows that God only wants to help the erring souls so that they will recognize him when he speaks to them through the forces of nature. Amen.